All right, y'all, welcome to the show. I hope everybody is having an awesome Christmas Eve out there. I still got a full show for you today. I know everybody's chilling and enjoying family time and holiday time, but we're getting into it today, y'all. We're getting into it. So in just a second, I have more Epstein updates. They do not stop. Can't stop, won't stop. I mean, we are looking at, it's incredible. The files are way worse than anybody could have ever predicted. And by the way, I thought they were going to be pretty bad, but this is like next level. So we'll talk about that. We also have the 60-minute segment that Barry Weiss censored and banned for Trump. I am going to show you that full segment. So what happened was they accidentally forgot to pull it from the airwaves in Canada because they're a bunch of idiots. And so a bunch of people in Canada obviously immediately posted it for people in the U.S., and we're going to go ahead and run that on this channel, so definitely check that segment out. By the way, I'm not going to lie to y'all, it is a little bit of a risk. It is a little bit of a risk. I mean, we'll do what we can to protect ourselves, change the audio a little bit and mirror the shit and whatnot, but it is a little bit of a risk. I can't say I'm not worried about that, not only the video getting taken down, but some issue with the channel, because, we're rolling the dice here. This is something literally the president of the United States and the executive branch, they don't want you to see this because of how horrible it makes them look. So there's plenty of stuff to be concerned about on that front. Then we'll talk about how the Supreme Court just delivered a brutal rebuke to Trump. A very pleasant surprise. The reason I'm saying present is because it's about to be Christmas, I think. So it's a funny Freudian slip. But you might call it an early Christmas present that the Supreme Court actually sided against Trump. Then we'll also get to how Trump is sundowning while he's threatening war with Greenland. So he's back on that kick where he every other day he's out there saying, we gotta have Greenland. We're gonna own Greenland. We're gonna steal Greenland. And he talks about it like it's some nonchalant thing, not like, literally brazen imperialism and creating the Fourth Reich. So we'll talk about that. And then also later on, Hunter Biden shocks everybody and goes on the Sean Ryan podcast and basically calls Trump a fredophile and goes at him for being in the Epstein files. So look, you love to see it. You love to see it. A bunch of interesting stuff. You guys know the drill, man. Everybody do me a big favor and please subscribe to the channel. That, of course, helps out massively and costs you absolutely nothing. You can also support the show on Patreon. Just $2 a month or $5 a month goes a very long way. Remember, y'all, this is real independent media. I've never had a conversation with an advertiser. I've never done an ad read. I've never talked to a billionaire or a government or a PAC or anything like that. You guys support the show from the ground up. So consider hooking your boy up with a little Christmas present of $2 per month or $5 per month. Like I said, it goes a long way. You can also tip with that thanks button on YouTube if you're so inclined. And sign up for Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. By the way, we have a Crystal Kyle and Friends this week. It will drop the day after Christmas. And as a Christmas present for everybody, what we're going to do is post the full thing for all. Okay? And if you like what you see, again, do us a favor. Sign up to get every full interview. You don't want to miss it. This week, I'm going to be talking to the man himself who got the Epstein files released, Congressman Ro Khanna. You do not want to miss this. It's going to be awesome stuff. So again, sign up below. And of course, go sub to my boy Corin's channel, Corin's World on YouTube, because he has an awesome podcast with yours truly on every Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And we shoot the shit and we answer super chats. And you guys are welcome to come hang out with us. All right, y'all. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in the deep end here. So let me start with this. More Epstein files keep coming out. As you know, this has been a clusterfuck to say the least. I mean, they were supposed to release all the files with only redacting the victim's information. They didn't do that at all. They released 1% of the files, and they redacted a bunch of stuff about the perpetrators and the criminals. So flagrantly violating the law, not just the letter of the law, but also the spirit of the law. And that is now leading to backlash. So we'll talk a little bit more about that backlash later on. Definitely tune in again to Crystal Kyle and Friends, because Ro Khanna will give you all of the spicy, juicy details about what they're doing now, how they're pursuing justice now. But it's only gotten more comical since then. So they released stuff that they wanted to redact, and they showed the world like a Epstein drawer full of Trump pictures. Then they pulled that back down. In fact, it was like 16 different things that they posted, then pulled back down. Then the day after, come to find out, it was easy to pull up the future Epstein files that they hadn't released yet by changing the URL, the number 7 to 8. This is literally Bush League stuff. This is like childish, idiotic stuff. It's a mistake that you'd expect like a middle schooler to make or something like that. Then you had, again, they posted something and then pulled it back down. You're able to unredact some of the stuff that's redacted because they did it in an amateurish way where all you had to do was copy and paste it in Notepad and it would show the stuff unredacted. One of the Krasenstein brothers figured that out. So, I mean, to say this has been comical is that's not even strong enough. Like, I need stronger language to really fully indicate to you just how ridiculous this whole thing has been. It's like the Three Stooges running the FBI and the DOJ in the Trump White House. That's really what it is. All right, so the DOJ has deleted 3 files after publicly releasing the Volume 8 of the Epstein archive yesterday. One of the files is about the guard who is said to have fallen asleep the night Epstein died. Why did the DOJ delete them? The J-Mail team archived the files, details below. So I should actually point out, this whole J-Mail thing, somebody made it easier to search through all of the Epstein files because they almost made it so, like, you are in Jeffrey Epstein's email account, and they call it J-Mail. So there's that. Websites out there. People are looking through it that way because, of course, the way the government did it, it's not searchable. And by law, they had to make it searchable, and they didn't make it searchable. So that's another way in which they violated the law. But here we go again. Why are you trying to protect the guard that fell asleep the night that Jeffrey Epstein died? It's almost like you know that's bullshit. It's almost like you don't want to get him further in trouble, right? It's almost like, you know, he was in on it or something like that. And so you know by showing the information about this guy, oh boy, you open up a whole new can of worms. What happens if, actual news agencies decide, well, reach out to this guy. Let's get a statement. Let's see if his story adds up. Let's see if this is suspicious. Because look, I got to tell you, we weren't born yesterday. The idea, oh yeah, the guard fell asleep. Like, what is this, a fucking Looney Tunes cartoon? What are you talking about? Was it also the case that, like, they were baking a delicious apple pie and the scent trail of the pie made them start floating towards it on a windowsill? Is that like, what are you, oh, he happened to fall asleep at the time that Jeffrey Epstein offed himself. Like, again, do you think we were born yesterday? You'd have to be the most naive person on planet Earth to believe that. So obviously, something fishy is going on with that. But I got more. Look at this. New Epstein files. The Trump Princess Yacht hat found among Epstein's belongings. A hat embroiled with Trump Princess, the name of Trump's former yacht, was found in the Epstein files. The hat features gold embroidery and nautical styling, appearing well-worn. Trump owned the luxury yacht in the late 1980s after purchasing it from Adnan Khashoggi. That's the dad of Jamal Khashoggi, who was murdered by Saudi Arabia for doing real journalism. Holy shit. Its presence among Epstein's possessions raises new questions about their early ties. So here we go. Let me click on this for you. So this was one of Epstein's belongings. He had a hat that said the Trump Princess, which is the name of Trump's yacht. So what that means is he absolutely positively was on that yacht, and on that yacht enough where Trump gave him like a fucking, a captain's hat or a first mate hat or whatever the fuck. Very bizarre, which then, of course, begs the question, well, what the fuck were y'all doing on that yacht? I think we know what you guys were doing on that yacht, but I still ask the question, what were y'all doing on that yacht? Oh boy, but we're just getting warmed up, bro. Have you guys seen this one? So this is from the Epstein files, one of the pictures. Ready? So here's what it looks like, right? But then somebody zoomed in a little bit here for us, and what did they find? Teal and Elon. Teal and Elon. Now, as you know, we know Elon was at the 2011 billionaires dinner that Epstein set up. So was Bill Gates. So was Jeff Bezos. I don't know if Teal was there. But, so Elon had connections to Epstein. Elon is in the Epstein files. And the fact that Teal is written down here too, like I said, the worst possible interpretation of what this Epstein thing is, that's what it actually is. Right? Like, it actually is a billionaire cabal, a secret cabal of billionaire elites that are committing the most heinous crimes and getting away with it, and they keep blackmail on everybody, and they run the world. That's what this is. So Teal and Elon, written down in the Epstein files when he was doodling, when he was, what is this like when you're in like 6th grade and you're scribbling and like you write the name of your crush? Is that what this is? All right, more. Here we go. The 28th victim of a Trump assault testifies Epstein paid beauty pageant girls to attend parties at Mar-a-Lago that he organized with Donald. Trump wanted private meetings with me, started grabbing and touching my body everywhere. I think my height was the only reason I escaped. She's 6'1". Quote, I was in a foreign country. I was scared that I could not go home or I couldn't come back. I was scared of everything. And when you're scared, you do whatever it takes to save yourself. This is Beatrice Kuehl. She has the receipt. She recently discovered Trump's invitation, airline tickets, and other documents while preparing to move. So here we go. Let me play this for you here. We have a video of it.
Entered the suite and looked around. And when I turned, in absolutely no time, he jumped on me, kissed me all over, grabbed me all over, and I was totally perplexed and blocked first. And then I tried to tell him that this is absolutely not the way it works in Europe, and that I don't want it.
She was trying to fight him off, she said, and he only stopped when she told him, let's talk first. So they talked for another few minutes, with Trump still kissing and holding her hand, before she found an excuse to leave, Beatrice told me. And there's another really worrying part to this story too. Beatrice said that Jeffrey Epstein was at the pageant. Yes, that's late paedophile billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. She said he was insistent to her and to other women, offering to pay their expenses to attend parties at Mar-a-Lago, which Epstein said he was organising with Don. A friend of Beatrice, who works in Swiss media, Pascal Kleivaz, told me that Kurl described the incident to him 2 decades ago and has not changed her story.
So now we have further verification of these parties at Mar-a-Lago, where a bunch of teenage models were invited, and the only people there were Trump and Epstein. I need you to think about how gross that is. I need you to think about what they had in mind. Okay? All right. Beatrice Kuhl made headlines a year ago when she accused Donald Trump of sexual abuse. Now she reveals that Jeffrey Epstein also wanted to make her his prey. Epstein introduced himself to me as Donald Trump's best friend on the sidelines of the competition. Donald Trump's best friend. First, the sexual assault by Donald Trump, and then Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't let go of me. It was like a horror show. First, the sexual assault by Trump, and then Epstein wouldn't let go of me. And this is what she looked like back in the day, and there's Donald Trump. She's with Donald Trump here. She literally has the receipts to prove the truth about the Trump and Epstein parties at Mar-a-Lago. Beatrice Kuhl found all the documentation, including all expenses paid, plane tickets, and Trump's invitation to his beauty pageant when she was preparing to move homes. Holy cow. So this stuff wasn't previously available. Now it's here. So that's her right there. Here's a picture of her with Donald Trump. Here's a picture of some of the documentation that she was talking about. More proof of Trump's Castle Casino Resort, Atlantic City, New Jersey. This is all the stuff she found that she just released. More stuff. First class tickets. Holy cow. Wow. But again, I'm just getting started. So here we go. We talked about this a little bit the other day. Ed Krasenstein claims to have unredacted Trump's Epstein file redactions and found evidence of mass bribery of witnesses and victims. Mass bribery done by Epstein and Trump to keep the victims quiet. That's what they're talking about here.
I was just able to recover some of the redactions to Trump's Epstein files, and you won't believe what I just found. The Trump DOJ screwed up some of the redactions so bad that you can recover them. And I did so simply by copying and pasting the text. When I did, this is what was there. This is 100% proof that Trump tried to cover up the existence of other participants in Epstein's crimes. It says right here that they paid large sums of money to participant witnesses in order to keep them quiet, as well as their attorney's fees. This means that Trump tried to hide the fact that there's other participants and other attorneys who know about it, as well as those who helped Epstein release damaging stories and destroy evidence. This is the biggest cover-up in American history.
He's correct. The biggest cover-up in American history. He's correct. This is now starting to remind me of the Catholic Church pedophilia scandal, where they had to pay out billions with a B, billions of dollars, because they were boinking kids for a generation. And now we learn mass bribery, mass payoffs of people who were victims of the sexual abuse done by Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. All right. Horrific account from an alleged victim of Ghislaine Maxwell obtained by the FBI in August 2020, describing sexual assault and torture by Maxwell alongside Prince Andrew, as well as being drugged by her father and forced to participate in pedophilia ring parties at 6 to 8 years old in Surrey, England. So look, I should be clear about this one. This is what's called an intake form, which is just a fancy way of saying people reaching out to the FBI with tips to say, hey, this happened or that happened, you might want to look into this, etc., right? So this is part of the Epstein files, but this is just an intake form. So what I would say is it's the lowest level of verified you could possibly have. Like, there's not as much certainty around this as other stuff that we've talked about, because this is just like, you know, somebody calls up and says something or whatever. Now, in many instances, it could literally just be somebody who's like a paranoid schizophrenic who's making some shit up. So keep that in mind. But having said that, I'm sure there's plenty of things that are part of these intake forms that the FBI has, which are also true, right? Now, I don't have the ability here and now to verify what's true and what's not true. Nobody does. Nobody knows. But this was leaked, and this is a story people should hear, right? They should hear about this, and you guys can make your own judgment as to whether or not you think it makes sense or not, okay? So, insane. I got another one here. New Epstein files. Child says she was hit by a car driven by Prince Andrew, tortured by Maxwell. This is the same intake form that he's talking about, too. An FBI intake document dated July 2020 contains a shocking allegation from a woman who says she was trafficked as a child in the UK and taken to abuse parties connected to Epstein's network. She says that between the ages of 6 and 8, she was drugged by her father and driven to a private estate in Surrey, where she was hit by a dark blue car driven by Prince Andrew. The impact caused permanent injuries to her ribs, hip, and leg. She says she later woke up to Prince Andrew standing over her. She also claims she was taken to another house, identified later as Frogmore Cottage, where she was restrained, tortured with electric shocks by Ghislaine Maxwell, and watched by a group of men. She says Maxwell beat her with a broom, broke her nose, and told her she, quote, deserved to die. Medical records are mentioned in the report, but the victim says she was only taken to the hospital after a rugby match to cover the real cause of her injuries. So, I mean, shit. I hope there's some journalist out there who's going to do the digging on this and going to do the reporting and try to figure out how much of this is true, because this is a horrific nightmare type story. And some of the stuff that I'm seeing on these intake forums are like, worse than you could even possibly imagine. Like, this is the first time I've even heard that as part of Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking pedophile ring, that there's literal torture involved. But I will say also, and we talked about this the other day, he's got that temple, that weird temple on his island, and nobody knows the exact reason why he has it. And there's like zodiac sign stuff in there. It's like occult stuff in there. So they might actually be in to some very weird stuff that includes like, I don't know, ritual sacrifice and stuff like that. I mean, again, this is just me shooting from the hip. This is pure speculation, and I'm more than willing to admit this is pure speculation at this point. But some of the stuff on these intake forms, man, it is the stuff of nightmares. It's the stuff of nightmares. All right, here we go. Interesting letter regarding support of the Maxwell bail application. Author's name redacted, although tiny piece of signature remains unredacted. So what this person is saying here is, if you look at this, you see this piece of the signature that's unredacted because it goes all the way up into the writing. Well, if you do a handwriting analysis with Donald Trump, what you'll find is he always signs his name like that. The D in his name, here you go, right here. See the way he does the D there? He makes the D go way up. Okay, that's not the right phrasing for this segment, if you know what I'm saying. But this is how he writes his name, and you could see it's very performatively large with certain letters, right? You could see the first letter here. Okay, and then I'll scroll back for you, and you can see here's the first letter. And so the speculation is, hey, this might actually be Trump signing a letter of recommendation for bail for Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted of human trafficking and pedophilia in her own respect. So Hassan Piker says, very strange that a big chunk of these redactions are now confirmed to be Donald Trump and suspected to be of numerous other powerful people, including co-conspirators. Why is the DOJ hiding these people's names as if they are victims? That's exactly right. So now we know, because something that was redacted, which people were able to unredact, now we know there's at least 10 co-conspirators, including Les Wexner, a billionaire, the guy who owned Victoria's Secret. So we got these billionaires and these super powerful people involved in a human trafficking pedophilia ring, and the government is protecting them? No. And you wonder why people don't trust the government at all. Well, this is why right here. You wonder why MAGA's collapsing. This is why right here. Or how about this one? Epstein record is an FBI intake report. So another one of these intake reports. So this is a tip given to the FBI. Dated in 2020. An unidentified woman / victim reports Epstein trafficked her at age 13 and that she was raped by Trump. And Trump later witnessed her newborn daughter be murdered and disposed of from a yacht. And it's like her uncle that does the murder and disposes of the baby from the yacht. Again, I hope there's some journalists out there digging into this stuff, bro. That's all I can say is I hope there's some journalists out there digging into this stuff. So here we have Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein. And here, look, he just comes out and says it. And he just comes out and admits it to Chris Cuomo. This is something that it was reported he said it, but now he's saying it again. Listen to this.
You really believe that Donald Trump is capable of having your brother murdered to spare himself embarrassment?
Absolutely.
Based on what?
From meeting him years ago and just watching his performance the last 20 years. Seeing he doesn't seem to have a limit on what he would do to help himself.
What experience did you ever have with him personally that made you think that he could be that cruel?
I think everybody, or most people, could be very cruel if it comes to protecting themselves. So I don't think that's a shocking answer.
So Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, is on the record as saying, I think Trump killed my brother. That is a huge deal. That is a huge deal. You know, it makes me think of all these goofy right-wingers who are still so desperate and trying so hard to like pretend like it's all Democrats and it's all Bill Clinton and like they're the only ones who are implicated. They were posting that picture of Clinton where he's in the hot tub, right? They were posting that picture and they were making videos or GIFs of Barack Obama like coming out from under the water as if he was sucking off Clinton. And it's like, this is so pathetic because there are actual Epstein emails that say that Trump, quote, blew Bubba. Bubba is Bill Clinton's nickname. So, like, there is some reason to believe it could have been Donald Trump blowing Bubba, but they had to make, oh, look, the guy who's not in the Epstein files, Barack Obama, let's pretend like it's him, because now we are coping and seething so hard that we just have to completely and utterly make stuff up to try to escape this reality. It has been radio silence on the right since all of the Epstein files have come out. It's like they're cooked. They know they're cooked. They don't even know how to come up with the BS narrative to try to combat it. And here we are. By the way, Alex Jones, how you doing, fella? How you doing, Ozempic Jones? Trump's not in the Epstein files. It's an absolute hoax. I don't know what you're talking about. This is What say you now? Well, he would probably still come out and lie because he's utterly shameless. But here's the guy, there's a billionaire pedophile cabal that's running us and they're stealing everybody's information and they're taking away your rights and they're going to make us be slave peasants. And he said this for fucking 20 years. Then he backed the guy who's actually ushering in that world and who actually is part of the billionaire pedophile cabal. What a sick joke. What a sick joke. All right, how about this one? This is a new statement from the Epstein survivor, Maria Farmer. Quote, we now all know that the FBI ignored my 1996 reports of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's sexual abuse of minors and possession of child pornography, which I made, not for myself, but for vulnerable girls like my younger sisters and Virginia Roberts Jeffrey. Since then, they have engaged in a systematic cover-up to protect him and his circle of powerful abusers. This revelation brings some validation, but not justice or accountability. So what we learned is, she told the truth when she said Jeffrey Epstein stole pictures of her like 12-year-old and 14-year-old sisters, and then he threatened to burn down their house if she told anybody that he did it. And this all came out. This was all an official FBI document. She was telling the FBI, you got to investigate this guy. And what did they do? They fucking sat on their ass for years and years and years is what they did. And now they're still engaged in a cover-up to protect the cabal. All right. Finally, we'll end on this one. So the other day we talked about this letter that was allegedly sent from Jeffrey Epstein to Nasser, who was the sexual abuser that was part of the women's gymnastics Olympic team, right? And, that guy went to prison. I believe he's dead now, if I remember correctly. And it was a very bizarre letter. Basically, the letter's like, hey, we share something in common, the thing about being into young girls, and like our president is also into nubile young girls. And it was a big deal. We all talked about it. But what came out afterwards is there are some issues with it. Like, for example, it was dated 3 days after Jeffrey Epstein had already died. It was sent from Virginia when Jeffrey Epstein was in New York. It didn't include his prisoner number, which by law it has to if you're going to send mail from prison. And so now people are trying to theorize, well, who sent that letter and why did they send it, right? And so I see some people making the argument it's still possible Jeffrey sent it, like it had to be approved by the people at the jail for it to be sent out. And, they have these explanations as to how it still could be the case that Jeffrey sent it. However, I want to share this theory with you because this one made me raise my eyebrows, and I'm curious what y'all think about it. So here we go. Adam Cochran says the following. I think the DOJ may have accidentally exposed a huge cover-up. After research, I do now believe this letter is fake. Initially, I thought his lawyers wrote it for him, but now my personal theory is this was planted by Bill Barr to cover up Epstein's death. First, pulling the MCC records of the commissary shows they did stock blank postcards in packets of 6, something you'd have to be familiar with to fake. But Epstein's receipts don't show any purchases of postcards. The closest was a single envelope. The postcard uses the Roger Dodger Hot Wheels postage stamp, which was sold briefly in 2018. Given the commissary's turnover of mail products, it's very unlikely a 2018 stamp was still being sold there in August 2019. The DOJ claims the postmark is wrong. What they are referring to is the Nova 220 and stylized imprint over the stamp. This shows where something entered the USPS mail system and the stamp was marked as used. This letter entered the post service not from MCC, but from Nova Processing Facility, Northern Virginia, in the 220 range of zip codes. That's right outside D.C. and includes the offices for the DOD, CIA, and other government agencies. Okay, keep that in mind, by the way. It's the 220 zip code. Okay. And according to stamp collecting websites, the code matches the same cancel pattern that was in use at the time, meaning it was authentically mailed from this region and not MCC. The first option here is that Epstein gave a note for his own attorney to write. Reed Weingarten represented Epstein and met with him 2 days before his death. He could have facilitated the drop-off of this letter, and Nova is right across the river from where Steptoe LLC is located. But at the same time, Reed seemed to work out of the New York office. We also have Reed's signature in 1922, this document from the recent DOJ file, and the handwriting looks nothing like the letter. But the postcard writing doesn't look anything like Epstein's writing either. Epstein also signed his name with some sloppy loop mark. That you can see. Look at that. That you can see. Okay. In fact, Epstein's writing is hard to find because he mostly had Maxwell take notes for him. His writing is incredibly sloppy. We find it in 2 places. 1, his passport applications. 2, the note he wrote in his jail cell. He couldn't have written the note. So you could see chicken scratchy, very almost illiterate type stuff. The note was also posted on Tuesday, August 13th, 3 days after Epstein died. Post in North Virginia takes 1 processing day after pickup and is not collected on a Sunday, meaning it was likely posted sometime between August 10th at 3:01 p.m. To Monday the 12th before noon. This was 3 days after his last lawyer visit, and on the same day he died, making it deeply unlikely it would be his lawyer, as it took ages to mail. So that leaves us with a set of criteria. So this needed to be someone in Northern Virginia/DC area that knew prisons use blank postcards, who knew Epstein was dead right away, who wanted a note that looked like a suicide note, who had access to earlier Epstein files to know his language about nubiles, who knew Nasser was moved, who had similar penmanship, who had connection to Epstein. Okay, this is getting spicy. Ready? And it just so happens that Bill Barr, the son of Epstein's first boss, was the attorney general under Trump at the time. He was in charge of the case. He was alerted to Epstein's death. He had insider access to the case. He knew about the birthday book. And where did Barr live at the time? A custom-built home in McLean, Virginia, in the Nova Processing region, with zip codes starting with 220. Okay, he continues. Now, this theory is crazy, right? The attorney general planting a letter to look like a suicide note in the Epstein case is crazy. His handwriting would also need to match the rather unique handwriting in the latter. Oh, and then you see here, the handwriting does kind of match with Bill Barr. That handwriting does kind of match. He continues, the stylized W is consistent, which is a common tell that someone's name contains the letter as they over-stylize it. It even has the same slant and middle part and shares a style with an oddly open capital A in as. So here, another comparison. Looks very similar. There's also a consistent lazy R, but even more telling is the fact that there are 2 different styles of R in the writing, which isn't common. But Barr's signature has appeared with both styles in the past, just like the letter. Wow. The letter also uses open, unfinished lowercase a's, even when standalone, as seen in Barr's signature. It even appears in the capital A in As You Know, which again is rare. The letter open loops its L's and D's and other cursive letters, as we see in William in Barr's signature. Barr has also used upward flourishes at the end of words, which we see repeated in the letter, and you can see that here. So that's his name. You see the upward flourish at the end. See the upward flourish there. Yeah, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. In his public office signature, he adopted a long tail off, as does the letter in the signature. And for an initial, he uses a flared letter with a sharp point, notably spaced from the letter. The single dot is clean with no motion. The letter does this as well. Lastly is the fact that letters are darker on the ends. This is a straight of high-end pens like rollerball or fountain pen, where the ink is continuous, not a Bic ballpoint pen. And in 2019, when photographed for New York Mag, what did Barr have? Some variety of either Park Sonnet or this other kind of pen that is exactly what we're referring to here. Look. If you zoom in on that, you can see it. You can see it. Okay. So what would this mean if the theory is accurate, that Bill Barr would be part of a cover-up to hide details about Epstein's death by writing a fake letter he knew would be found? The timeline matches, the insider knowledge of the Epstein case matches, the location mailed from matches his home, the handwriting matches, the motive matches, even the content matches. The note conveniently starts off with Epstein alluding to killing himself to someone he's never met. That's true. That's what that letter did to Nasser. Then mentioned something about Trump's interest in young women, something that no one would ever expect was part of a cover-up. They'd simply then, in the future, claim that the letter was a plant without examining who or why. But if the letter were taken at face value, I'd give Bill Barr, the DOJ, and the BOP the cover they need for whatever actually happened in the prison that night. Whether it was negligence, encouraged suicide, or murder, something was covered up. The Attorney General, Department of Justice, and BOP all cared about saving their own ass. But if Barr did this, he'd never tell the incoming DOJ, and so they denounced this letter because of its mention of Trump, drawing unwanted scrutiny, like me, to look at it more closely. And so, unless one of Epstein's lawyers wrote this letter on his behalf, knowing their client was going to commit suicide, I can only arrive at the personal theory that Bill Barr posted this to cover up Epstein's death. And then he goes on to give a disclaimer here. And he says, look, I'm not a handwriting expert, and this is just a theory. I have no evidence. He hasn't been charged with anything, yada, yada, yada. But this is what this guy lays out. This is what this guy, Adam Cochran, lays out. So, look, I'm going to leave it up to y'all. You tell me what you guys think. But, somebody goes on to ask in the comments, and I think it's a reasonable question. And they're like, well, if he's working for the Trump DOJ and he's on Team Trump, then why would he add the part about Trump being into nubile girls? And, his response is basically something like, well, you want to put in something that you wouldn't use as part of a cover-up because that's what makes it a good cover-up. That's what makes it, because then he can come out and say, well, of course, why would I? If this was a cover-up, why would I put something like that? That's crazy. I'd never do that. That was my boss at the time. So here's what he says when somebody asks him, interesting theory, why would he throw the president under the bus? Because he works for Trump, right? Okay. Unlike Trump, Barr is actually smart enough to know that the best lie is one that's embarrassing. People won't question something if it's a lie, if part of it makes you look bad/guilty, because they assume, why would you lie about that? So he wrote something that says something about Trump but isn't evidentiary. So it's embarrassing but not harmful. I don't know, man. But the fact that letter exists and the way it was mailed, it's all super crazy. So we're on some OD whodunit shit now. And these Epstein files, they just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And by the way, like we already pointed out, we still got over 90% of the way to go. We haven't even seen half this stuff yet. So, Jesus, I might have an aneurysm just covering it. This stuff is out there. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.